I wish I had known that you did City of Bel Air, because the other permit company that I was using didn't do City of Bel Air, and submitted things wrong like 3 times. I kept having to like delete and back out and redo it. I spent like half a day messing with this stuff, and I would love to just hand that off to somebody else.
Right. Well, call me next time I'm here.
Oh, absolutely.
Communication and relationships are really key to any project that you're, going to kick off. And like you say, it is a journey. The way that we kind of look at it is, we're excited to help people fulfill their dreams. I mean, it's not just about getting a permit for us. I mean, we're putting people to work. They're feeding their families. They're building their homes, their futures for their children. I mean, and so looking at it from that perspective, it really makes it more tangible for us. I love it when it gets done. I'm like, oh, there it is, the golden ticket. We got. So.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Your Project Shepherd podcast. Today we are going to be talking about an aspect of the building process that's often overlooked, but which is crucial to getting your project started off on a positive note, and that is permitting. And so to help us navigate this permitting jungle, today we have Ramie Elizondo with Permit Pros with us. Ramie, first of all, welcome.
Thank you, Curtis.
Can you give us a quick rundown of kind of what we're going to be talking about in this episode in relation to permitting?
So today we're going to talk about the value of having a permitting professional on your team. We're going to talk about the resources and relationships that we bring to the table, common mistakes that can slow down the process. We'll also talk about how we can reduce stress and make your project outcome a lot smoother. And then also we'll talk about the project timeline and how it all affects your budget.
Awesome. One of the things that we talk about a lot here on the podcast is, and this is kind of one of our core kind of ideas that we have, is building your team and having good people on your team. And, just like the architect and the engineer and the designer and the builder, we all have our own specific sets of knowledge and expertise. But permitting professionals have their own specialized skill set, and there's a lot of nuance to navigating the permitting, minefields, right? Mm-hmm. What kinds of knowledge, do you guys have that help navigate that process that, a builder or an architect may not have?
Well, so what we do is we study the process. From the beginning, we build relationships with the people at the cities. Anytime I start out a new relationship with a municipality, I go there, I talk to everybody that will listen, I introduce myself, I take them cookies. I mean, we literally, we send thank you notes. We are building a foundation of a relationship with these people. And, back before COVID, we could go into a lot of the offices and, sit in front of them and get to know them. And that's something that has changed a little bit since COVID. Everything has gone online. And so our written communication has increased significantly, but still being able to go in and talk to them and understand the process and know who to talk to, that is really key.
And you work in other municipalities. Ooh, I can't talk today. Municipalities. You can keep that in there. Don't cut that out. That's funny. You work in other cities besides just Houston, right? We were talking about this beforehand.
Yeah, I sure do. I work all over Texas, actually. Any of the villages or some of the smaller municipalities around Houston, we do quite a bit of work in those.
And so, like City of Houston, like you said, most of that's gone online now. I guess you can still walk in there for certain things if you need to, but they like to do everything online. But some of these smaller cities, Memorial Villages, Westview, Bel Air, all those types of places, you can still walk in and kind of develop a face-to-face relationship with some of those folks, right?
Yeah, you're correct about that. It's kind of hit or miss. I mean, some of them do still use the paper plans. Some of them do use an online portal. All of the offices are open now, though. So if you really need to, you can go in and talk to someone.
Yeah. So, having those relationships with the people in the city, I think is key, because if you're just submitting something online, and again, with Houston, it's hard because it's so big. There's so many people. It's a big staff, but especially I think with some of the smaller cities, it's essential to have those face-to-face relationships, because you can call up Bel Air, for example, and say, hey, Christian, hey, Mike, here's what I need. Remember me, we're working on this project. And they're like, oh yeah, she's the lady that came in and introduced herself and was really easy to talk to, versus just, if you're just a number, right, you don't get the same, kind of response that you might if you have that personal connection.
That's right. And this is really all about relationships in any business. When we're working with people, they're not just a number to me either. I'm not just trying to get something from them. I mean, I want to build a relationship where, I can make this process easier for them too. I mean, a lot of times they'll see a set of plans and they're like, what in the world? But if I can streamline that process and they see a project coming from Permit Pros, they know what to expect and they know it's going to be easier, and they'll click on my project before they would maybe somebody else's.
Yeah, let's make this easy today. Let's start our day off with the easy project, right, and pick that one, knock it out before we look at the one that I know is going to be a mess. That's where right, it's missing things and stuff's out of order and whatever, right?
Absolutely. I
think that as builders and architects, a lot of us tend to view all the cities as being like, oh, we have to deal with this now. And, I don't want to have to go interface with those people. They're a pain in the butt. But I think it's important to keep in mind, like you said, these people are human. They're like, they want their day to go smoothly too, just like you and I do. So it's having those relationships and knowing kind of how to interface with people. It's like anything, like you have to know the personalities and how you're going to talk to that person. You don't deal with every single person in your life the same way. You have to kind of tailor your responses and your actions with how you know that they're going to react to you, right?
That's right. It is psychological for sure.
Your job isn't really to know necessarily all the specific items that are in the code, right? I mean, like that's kind of what the architects should be doing, the engineers, the builders to some extent. But you have to have enough knowledge about current codes that are adopted and what the cities are looking for. You have to have enough knowledge to be able to look at a package and know that this is complete, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that we do that at Permit Pros is we've been rejected a lot and we keep track. Mm-hmm. And so I have a checklist that I've created for each one of the different project types. And I'll go through and mark off the items, go through and look at the plans, detailed oriented communication with the architect and engineer, trying to get the project comments, issues, all of that stuff taken care of up front, mm-hmm, so that we can mitigate multiple submissions. Our goal is 2 submissions max. Mm-hmm. And so having that checklist in place and knowing exactly what the comment of the month is, because a lot of these requirements have been in place, they just haven't enforced them. Yeah. And so I'm sure you've run into that before where it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know we had to do that now. And so we keep track of all of that and have an exhaustive list of comments.
Yeah, like you said, the comment of the month, like I think sometimes, especially some of the bigger cities like Houston I'm sure they have staff meetings, right? Where the head of the permitting department's like, hey, we've been noticing this. I want you to pay special attention and watch for this item on the plans right now.
Absolutely,
right? And so whereas the plan review staff may not have been looking for something before, now they're like, oh, I've got to kind of check that box every single time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you're seeing the things that are getting kicked back on a regular basis or new issues that start to pop up, so you can make your customers aware. Hey, make sure this is on your plans. Or as you're reviewing them, you're like, nope, they missed the smoke detectors. They've been really catching that lately, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And also, I mean, we talked about dealing with personalities and kind of knowing how to talk to them. But I think sometimes it's also knowing who not to talk to, like who to avoid. Like, again, like at anything, there's always certain people that are going to be more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of knowing these are the people that I could maybe try to steer away from if possible, and let's go talk to this person in the office, right?
That's right. Absolutely. So, and that one of the things when we used to be able to go to the city and you would get a ticket and you would go upstairs and you would go to talk to this person, they say, no, you're in the wrong place. You have to go talk to, and you're going up and down the stairs and you're back and forth. And so going through that process and learning who to talk to, and a lot of those people are still there now. So I do know who to stay away from.
Yeah. And also it's being confident enough to know to where kind of what order things are supposed to happen in. And so maybe you get like a new person and they're like, no, you need to go do this first. And you're now like, nicely like, hey, actually, the steps on past projects that I've done, the steps have been, I come here, then I go here, then I go here. Can you check that? Are you sure? Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes probably oftentimes you may know better than some of the new employees what the real process is, right?
Yeah, that's true. But also, helping them learn as well. Because they can't be expected to know everything walking in the door, and so can you help me understand is a really great way to communicate with them. And then they can go back and ask their supervisor or whatever. They'd be like, oh, actually it is this way. So
everyone wants to look good. Right. And so if you can help them look good, they're going to be happier too, right?
That's right. And then again, they'll open up my email and say, oh, it's from Ramie. Let me see what she needs.
Being familiar with the requirements, being familiar with what the process is. That's something that, that I don't have time to do. The architects don't have time to do. So again, going back to the team approach, like you're a key member of our team to make sure that the project's getting off on the right foot, right? That's
right. And, sometimes people will involve the homeowners in the communication. And I'm careful about how much information we share with the homeowner versus the builder, because a lot of times they may want to be involved, but maybe they don't need to know everything because there's a lot of nuances and things that, could be terrifying to them that are no big deal to the builder. So, but yeah, I definitely try to keep everybody in the loop and stay in communication with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think that some architects and builders, they're like, oh, all this, especially with Houston or some of the other cities, all this stuff's online. I can just submit it myself, which they can, right? There's nothing stopping people from doing it themselves versus hiring you. But I think, at least in my case, I feel like my time is better spent not doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because like City of Houston website, for example, it's not straightforward. It's like, it's not the most modern technology and, knowing kind of where to submit certain things, kind of how to follow that process. That's just not something I want to spend my time doing. And so I think if you look at the kind of the time value of money, I would rather put my time into managing the projects or, working with new clients or whatever, and let you do what you do best so that I can do what I do best.
Well, what might take you 3 hours would only take me 30 minutes. So because I understand how the softwares work, how they don't work together, and, being able to get in there, fill everything out, submit it in the order that they want it done. There's a lot of prerequisites that are required on residential projects that people may not be aware of. And I always look for those items ahead of time and make the recommendations in our proposal for the packet so that there's a checklist back there and they know exactly what they need to be providing me in order to make the project be successful.
Reducing stress in the project is a big deal, not only for the builder, but also for the customer, because I think people get very excited to start a project, as they should. They're like, I'm building this house, or I'm doing this big addition to my house. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. But then if you don't get this stuff done in a timely manner, you can add months to the process, right? If you don't get your submittal right the first time, if it keeps getting kicked back for one reason or another, you can just stretch that process out a long time, right?
Yeah. I understand that the home building process, you're helping people realize their dreams, right? And there is a lot of money and emotion invested in, selections, and you spend so much time in the planning phase setting everything up, and they think, well, we're going to get started now, but then there's permits. And so helping builders understand and kind of manage expectations and that timeline, everyone should expect for a permit to take about 2 months. That is a reasonable amount of time for the city of Houston and surrounding areas. And with my company, our goal is 2 submissions only. We should expect a handful of comments. I rarely see any projects go through first round. Maybe some smaller remodels, but for the most part, kind of helping people understand. But we still have this other component, the permitting aspect that, will take about 2 months once we get that construction set ready. So.
Yeah, people watching this and listening to this maybe in other parts of the country as well. I feel like we're super fortunate in the Houston and in a lot of Texas, and that our permits generally go. I mean, that's pretty quick in relation to other parts of the country. I have friends that build in California, and they're like, it may take a year to get a new construction permit or more.
Well, it hasn't always been that way. That has just been recently within the last year and a half. In 2019, everything was paper and in the city of Houston, with the exception of some commercial projects. And their goal was to go 100% electronic over the course of a 3-year period. Mm-hmm. They had to go 100% electronic in 2 months.
Right, because of COVID.
Right. And so not only are you overloading the software, right? They don't have the storage capacity for all of that to happen. You have staff that hasn't been trained on that. I mean, you got people remote working, and I mean, people that are, it was a debacle. Yeah. Truly. And, with planning was at 27 business days. I mean, that's just one review cycle. So it was taking 3 to 4 months in 2020, 21 to get a custom build. And that feels like a long time. I mean, a really long time.
Yeah. But still, like, relatively speaking, like California, maybe some of the other, like New York, some of those places that are running a year or more for permits, I feel like we're very fortunate with our relatively short cycles here in Texas.
Yeah. And it would be good to share that information with other builders, because they're like, it's taking too long at 2 months. So,
I mean, I think if you have a good strategy for how to approach this stuff, you can time that with the start of your project. Like some of these sets of plans that we have for big custom homes, maybe, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 pages, but 75% of those pages aren't even needed for permitting, right? A lot of those are like details, millwork and cabinetry and connection details, stuff the city doesn't care about, right? And so if you have a good strategy with your architect and engineer, you can say this is kind of like the bare set that we need for permitting. It's, the architectural, the electrical, the structural, the soils reports, kind of here's our basic package of information that we have to have. Let's get that permitting process started 2 or 3 months before we're actually going to start this build. And that way we roll into it, and it's a smoother, faster process, right?
Absolutely. That is the right way to do it. And in fact, we can even start in the city of Houston. We can start with just a site plan. If we know the footages and, the boundaries, if there's going to be a sidewalk modification, we can get the water letter ahead of time. If there's any forestry, if we're going to remove any trees, we can do all of those submissions up front and have your packet ready with the building permit application. You've got a project number, and you have all of those preliminary submissions ready to go. That way, when the building drawings are ready, I can come in and just review them, make a few comments. They make the adjustments, and we can submit within a day or two. And now your project is, from that point, looking at about a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, and there's certain base information that we have to get on every project. I mean, we got to go ahead and get the surveys and the soil tests and all that stuff for new construction. We know that we have to have it, so let's go ahead and order that as early on as possible so we can get it to you and you can have that base information. I had a project that, actually one that I'm currently actively a consultant on, where I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, architect or builder wise, but they really didn't think this process through. And they had a project they didn't even realize was in the floodplain somehow. They submitted it for a permit, and then it just sat there at the city for like 4 months, and the architect and the builder and even the permit person that was hired never even checked on it for some reason. They were just kind of waiting on approval, and it just sat there. And so the homeowner's getting angrier and angrier because they're ready to start their construction project. And so that's when they hire me. They're like, Curtis, this has been stalled out for 4 months and it's not going anywhere. We're anxious to start. We have all this money tied up in design, and we're paying interest on the property and blah, blah, blah. And so they call me, they're like, help us get this moving. While I'm on the phone with them, with kind of an initial consultation before I ever get hired, I'm like, okay, what's the address? I pull it up on my computer. I'm like, hey, that project or that property is 2 blocks away from White Oak Bayou. So I know that's in the floodplain. And sure enough, I pull up their project on the city website. It never went to flood. And it was just sitting there because they hadn't met these just very basic requirements of checking to make sure that they had all the flood stuff done. And so again, the architect, the builder, the permit person that was hired, no one caught that it's supposed to go to flood. And so now the clients wasted literally 4 months of paying interest on the property, and they're angry about it. So, having all of that necessary base information and having a qualified person kind of checking over the information before it gets submitted to make sure that everything's there is so key, right?
Truly is. And I'm sorry that happened. It's that sounds like a nightmare for sure.
I mean, just like there's good builders, bad builders, good architects, bad architects, there's people that are qualified, not qualified, even on the permit side, right? It's one of those things. It's kind of like being a builder in Texas. There's no licensing, there's no formal education, so to speak, right? So you're hiring somebody kind of based on their experience and their history. And so, you can't really, outside of asking for references and asking what your experience is, there's no really vetting process for hiring a permit person.
Yeah, that's true. But you can have a conversation with them, and you can talk about some of the builders that they work with in the past, and you can do some vetting. And I would recommend doing that because, like you said, building a team, I mean, you're going to vet your architect and your builder and your engineer. A lot of the builders that I work with are well known in the industry. I'm also a member of the GHBA. That's a good place to start if a homeowner is looking for a permit expediter, somebody that's part of an organization that has the quality of contractors and associates and builders like the GHBA. You're going to get a quality work product.
Yeah. Starting off on the wrong foot like that, like this family did. As a builder, I want to make sure that I'm hiring the right person, because if my permit sits there for 2, 3, 4 months and nothing happens and I'm not hearing anything, I'm also losing confidence in my builder as well as the homeowner. So I, as the builder, want to make sure that I've got the right team put together so that my customer is getting the warm and fuzzies about this thing's moving in the right direction. I'm starting off on a positive note, right? I'm not starting off with, I'm pissed off and I've got to hire a consultant to help me because things are just sitting here, nothing's happening, right?
Scratch the ground yet, right?
Hiring somebody like yourself, a permit professional, it lets me as a builder kind of focus on all the other kind of critical aspects of getting this thing started. So I'm not spending my time managing, checking the city portal, checking the comments, seeing what's going on. Now I'm focused on scheduling my subcontractors, making sure all my paperwork's in place from the, internally. I'm kind of spending my time planning things to making sure they're moving forward. Let's talk about some common mistakes that you see get made. We touched on a minute ago how the cities might have like little kind of pet items every once in a while that maybe get brought up in a staff meeting. What are some kind of common things that you see, whether it's architects or builders, kind of leave off of plans that you always have to you go back to them and say, hey, before I submit this, make sure this gets added, or this is a comment that I'm hearing a lot.
Right. So a lot of times, most recently, it's been the window sill heights is something that has been left off a lot. And basically, in our checklist, we start off and review the minor things. Is the project sealed and signed by the engineer? Sometimes that gets left off. Is it for a permit or is it for pricing? It needs to be listed as for construction. Yeah. So some of these little things that people miss. I would say also the supporting documents. City of Houston has a lot of required supporting documents, and where you might be able to display it on the plans, like the impervious cover information, you still have to have an application for grading and fill. You have to have all of those filled out properly. There's some weird questions on there that may not apply, but you need to know which ones to say yes and no to. It's simple, but that's one of the things that people miss a lot. The impervious cover form, getting that right. The city uses HCAD for a lot of their coverage information. And while it may not always be correct, that's what they use. And so we have to calculate the impervious cover based on what they're looking at. So there's just some things with these supporting documents that I see a lot that get missed or overlooked.
Yeah. Any other like plan details? I know that like on remodels, this was years ago back when I was doing more of that. People would miss like comments like interconnected smoke detectors on a remodel. I mean, any other little things like that you've seen kind of constantly pop up?
Really, a lot of it has to do with the site plan. Having the building lines in the proper location, everything needs to be dimensions from the building, all of that. If an architect has done the drawings, they are usually pretty good about having the code information on the plans. We're not required to actually have electrical or MEP drawings in the city of Houston for residential homes. They do want to see how things are interconnected, and as long as you can show that on one of your floor plans, they're fine with it.
Don't they also require there to be some comments about like GFCI breakers or GFCI receptacles and arc faults and that kind of stuff on the plans?
There are, yeah. So you would include that with your interconnecting the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide sensors.
I guess I didn't realize in Houston, at least, that they didn't require a electrical plan. I knew that like mechanical and plumbing is not required, but electrical, I thought that was required in the city.
Well, you can show it on one of the floor plans. You don't have to have a.
You don't have a dedicated electrical plan.
Dedicated electrical plan.
Okay, gotcha. One thing that I've seen happen a couple of times now is that the city might even miss something on their plan review because again, these folks are human and they can't catch everything. And just to think about like how big some of these permit sets are, again, there's so much information there. They can't physically like catch every single thing. So I've seen them miss things during plan review, and then it gets to the field and it comes inspection time. The field inspectors are like, "Hey, that's not on your plans, and why didn't you do that?" I feel like also having you kind of go through your checklist and you catching things is also going to help. Even if the city misses it on permitting, it's going to help cut off those problems in the field 6 or 9 months down the road.
Absolutely. Another thing that we do also, though, is because things like that do happen, or that maybe the homeowner has a change and there's a submission required, we stay with you throughout the entire process. We will submit revisions. Anytime there's an administrative error or an issue during inspections, we're with you to make the calls and follow up and, schedule the inspections and take care of all of that for you so you don't have to skip a beat, really.
Yeah. I actually had one that I was consulting on where, and again, I got hired after the project started, which is what usually happens, where the city didn't even catch that the property was in the floodplain.
The city didn't catch it.
The city didn't catch it. It went all the way through permitting. Now, the whole property wasn't the floodplain. Cut across the front corner of the property, but technically, if any part of the property is in the floodplain, they count the whole thing as being in the floodplain. The city did not catch the floodplain issues. They got all the way to through framing, and I guess a city flood inspector happened to drive by and said, "Hey, this house is in my area. Why aren't there any inspections on this?" And so they made a stop, and the house is built. I mean, foundations poured, the framing's up, and then the inspector catches it. And so we had to go back to the city and kind of talk to the right people and say, "Hey, how are you guys going to treat this? Because this is a pretty major thing you didn't catch." Right. But, fortunately, we had somebody that interfaced with us on the city on that. So we didn't have to, be the one kind of brown nosing the guy
Right.
at the city. We had a professional kind of helping us on that, but those kind of things happen. I mean, again, mistakes get made, and maybe it's the city inspector's driving by and he sees something like that, or maybe it's a neighbor or the HOA or whatever notice something and it kind of triggers it. And in those instances, though, like you would still go back and help go back to the city and say, you guys didn't catch this. Now it's an issue. How are we going to resolve this, right?
Well, and that's where our relationships come into play. So making a phone call versus trying to track down who to talk to and brown nosing and all of the things that need, that you might feel like you need to do, we can take care of that right away. So, and they, especially if the city has made a mistake, they are very quick to rectify that, and in most situations. And with the change in administration, we're seeing a lot of really positive mindset shift happening at the city, which has been needed for a while. And I think I'm excited to see that, if there is an issue or mistake, they really want to focus on customer service and helping people rather than, nope, sorry, this is just the way we do it.
Yeah,
You're screwed.
Yeah, I've seen that too. We've had some folks from the city come to our GHBA luncheons. Actually, we do that kind of once a year. We invite some of them to come in and do kind of a Q&A session, talk about updates and kind of where things are heading. And I've definitely noticed kind of a good attitude shift in the right direction. And they seem to be very willing to work with us and kind of, well, let's make this process better, right?
Right. And I think, as the shift is happening at the top, there's a lot of really positive changes that are coming. And they're also going to start in November 19th. They're having a permitting workshop, and you can go. They're going to have a main workshop, and then they're going to have breakout sessions. So stay tuned and keep an eye out on the Houston Permitting Center website. They're going to be offering that to help stakeholders, homeowners, anyone can come in and learn. And the breakout session is nice because if you focus on just remodeling, they're going to have something for you. If you're concerned about foundations or planning issues, you can go and learn just about that. So it's going to be very informative, I think.
The other thing that they've started doing, I think within the last year or so that's been helpful, is they have a monthly newsletter that they're publishing. I'm sure that you've seen, and they'll make comments on the newsletter about, these are issues that we're seeing. This is what's coming up. These are the new changes. So that newsletter has been nice. I get that email every month, and I open that and look at it. It's been very helpful.
It's great. Yeah. And they update forms. They have all of that in details, any of the standard details that we can use, say for like the traffic department. All of that stuff is right there. It's very convenient.
So talk us through kind of your ideal, like what's your dream, your dream client process. So talk us through your ideal kind of workflow from getting information to reviewing to submitting and all that.
So I love it when I get the site plan that has square footages early because I can set up the project. What we do when I get the call is I immediately understand the address, look if it's in flood, identify how big the lot is, because that makes a difference in the drainage and detention that's required. I will immediately pull the HCAD and learn as much as I can about the property, look it up on Google, and, fill out all of the paperwork and the information that I can. And I do a lot of that stuff up front. But then once I get the site plan, if I can get that ahead of time, a month or two ahead of time, then I can pull, like we discussed, a lot of those preliminary submissions that are necessary. I can pull that and get that started. And then I can wait on the plans and we're ready to go. So once I get the plans, I'll go through the checklist and identify any issues or changes that need to be made, communicate directly with the engineer and architect, get those back and submit. Ideal situation is we're only seeing comments that are related to life safety. And if there's any code issue that maybe the architect wasn't aware of or the engineer missed, then that would minimal comments, one or two I would expect. Of course, a perfect world, no comments, first round, that's easy. But like I said, there's going to be some challenges. They're going to find something.
Right. I almost feel like they feel like they're not doing their job unless they find one little thing.
Right.
And honestly, sometimes it's something they find, it's there, they just missed it, or they were looking for it on one page, but that comment might be on another page, right? Because there's no standard formatting for this information, generally speaking. So like there's no requirement that these comments have to be on the cover sheet. Like some of the comments might be on page 10 in a little box off to the side.
Right.
And if they're not flipping to that page looking for it, it might get kicked back.
That's right. Well, and a lot of times they are very busy. They also have a small window where they need to get this project out because it can't be in the system for more than 10 to 15 business days. And so they sometimes will just speed through the review. And so some of the recommendations that I make to architects is go ahead and put the code references that you're familiar, that are going to be kind of an issue. Put that on the floor plan, and include that in the drawing, maybe off to the side, just a notes section. And then they can go through and see that you're meeting all of these requirements just by listing the code. And that has helped people, get things done much quicker.
Yeah. So is that something that you have done before or would like to do? And that's like meet with architects and just kind of talk to them about, hey, these are the kinds of things these are the kinds of things that I want to see, or this is the kind of the format that I suggest you put it in. Is that a conversation that you like to have?
Yeah, I love to. We love to get in front of people as early on in the process as possible because we can make these recommendations early and save a lot of time on the back end.
Yeah. So if you're an architect listening, call Ramie and maybe set up a time for her to come by the office and just maybe, I don't know, maybe even like look at a standard set of their plans and make suggestions on, hey, I suggest that you format it this way so that it speeds up your permit process, right?
And you can move this to this page because, and I look at it, whenever I review the drawings, I look at it from a city employee's perspective, right? I'm going to review this, and if I can't find something easily or quickly, and I know that I'm looking for it, then I'm going to turn the page and issue it as a comment. So
Yeah.
When you can kind of build your plan set in that way, thinking of it from a perspective of someone that's looking for specific items, then you can really make it more efficient for the reviewer.
Yeah. So it's looking at it kind of through the lens of a plan reviewer and making their life easy, because the easier you make their life, the better. The faster they're going to get it kicked out, the better the response is going to be, the less comments, and kind of speed the whole process up, right?
Oh, and I promise they know. They look at enough of these drawings all day, every day, and they know the good ones, and they know that one. Right. I'm going to save that one to the end.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure
it might even get pushed to tomorrow.
I'm sure the plan reviewers, they see enough that they know the good architects. They're like, oh, that firm is going to have a good set of plans. I'm going to burn through this.
And they do. And they may not even have to look because they know that architect is going to include it on the plan. So it does benefit as an architect to spend some time and really think about, organizing how you would want to communicate what you're trying to build.
Yeah. How should architects and engineers, respond to comments? Because, oftentimes you'll get a set of comments back and there's a specific way the city kind of wants you to format your response, or kind of how to submit that. What, in your opinion, what's the best way to respond once you get a list of comments?
So one of the things that we do also is when we get the list of comments, we'll read through the comments and identify, okay, I saw that on the plans. I'm going to go ahead and talk with the reviewer about that one, and we'll get that one removed.
Don't even bother the architect with that one.
That's right. Or if there's things that I can take care of, I'll make notes on and create a comment response for them. Give them a little bit of 3 or 4 spaces and then I'll just say Permit Pros handles this one or whatever, and then send that. And ideally, you don't have to write a letter or anything, but just have the comment listed on the response and then say where it's located in the plan set, the page number, and then how you address the comment. So that's really the fastest, easiest way to do it. And if you just copy and paste the comments directly from the website or in their new spreadsheet from Project Docs, you can easily update that spreadsheet or create a Word document or Google Doc and send that over.
Yep. Awesome. I want to kind of try to wrap things up. I've had some of these episodes go way super long recently. So I'm trying to keep this discussion fairly reasonable to keep Daniela happy as well from having to edit it all. So to kind of wrap this up, what advice would you give anyone who's kind of embarking on a project that requires permits, whether they handle it themselves or whether they decide to use a professional service like yourself? What advice would you give somebody who's putting together a package to submit to the city?
So I would say take your time. Go through each one of the checklists. The city has a number of online checklists that you can find. Their prerequisite checklist is a great guide to help you understand everything that they're going to be looking for in order to submit the project. Most of the cities have that. Study their website ahead of time. Kind of get to know their process. Register. Make sure if you're in the outside cities, make sure your contractor is registered with the city, because that is a requirement in most municipalities other than Houston. And so really kind of doing your due diligence on the property as well. Make sure you have an updated plat if that's required. That's something that can create significant delays on a project. Platting takes 3 to 6 months. And if you're not aware that you need that, it can really, really delay your project. That's something that has happened quite a bit. And so doing your due diligence, having all of the team in place, so planning for your permit, and understanding that it's going to take time, building that time into your schedule is really key to making the whole process go a lot smoother and not creating a lot of delays, unexpected delays.
Yeah. My takeaway is that it's just so important to get the project off on the right foot, and whether that's timeline or kind of homeowner confidence, like customer confidence. But getting your permits quickly demonstrates that, that we as builders are professionals and that we have a good team. And so, again, it's all about creating that team. It's about, relying on the expertise and the experience of the team members to make sure that things go smoothly. Right.
And building relationships. So communication and relationships are really key to any project that you're, going to kick off. And like you say, it is a journey, and the way that we kind of look at it is, we're excited to help people fulfill their dreams. It's not just about getting a permit for us. We're putting people to work. They're feeding their families. They're building their homes, their futures for their children. And so looking at it from that perspective, it really makes it more tangible for us and exciting, I love it when it gets done. I'm like, oh, there it is, the golden ticket. We got it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this discussion. Can tell builders and architects out there who are watching, if they want to work with Permit Pros, how do they find you, and how do they start working with you?
So you can email me. My email address is ramie@permitpro-pros.com, spelled RAMIE. You can also go to our website, permit-pros.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 832-715-1781.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Sure. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. And we will definitely do some projects together. Unfortunately, I have not worked with you yet. I just met you at GHBA luncheon, and I'm so glad that you are a part of that organization as well, because that helps kind of spread the word and meet great builders.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a great organization.
All right. And thank you all for watching the Your Project Shepherd podcast today. We'll see you next time. Take care.